Hey everyone, welcome to this edition. I'm Jim Williams and Sean Miller with you. And today we're going to talk about a lot of things, but let's start with Sean. There's a lot of free agents in baseball, and there's some pretty darn good ones.
Yeah, it's going to be, there's a big story on ESPN today by Kylie McDaniel predicting, the top 50 free agents. I mean, there's a lot of free agents and stuff is going to change. So, now obviously, Aaron Judge
Right.
is number one here. He's probably, going to win the MVP in a landslide here. Be interesting to see where he goes because he's a California guy.
San Francisco wants to put some money in the till on that one.
Yeah, played at Fresno State, and the Mets are involved. You got the Dodgers and stuff. He could go anywhere. You got Trey Turner, shortstop.
I'll tell you what, personally, this comes from watching Trey when he was with the Nationals. I got to say, to me, Trey's one of those sleeper good guys. I mean, he can hit for average. He's got pop. He can play a phenomenal shortstop. I think he might be, for me, if I were looking for somebody, I would go Turner before Judge. And that's only because, Turner's younger than Judge. But he also has got, in my mind, he's got a better upside. I mean, here's a guy can steal 30 bases for you, hit over 300, and still get you 25 home runs.
Yeah, and it's interesting because usually it's pitching, and here the number 2 is Turner, 3 is Correa, shortstop, 4 is Bogarts, a shortstop, 5 is Swanson, a shortstop. I mean, there's a lot of shortstops here. You don't even really get down to pitching until number 6 with Jacob deGrom. And the crazy thing is, I mean, remember just watching the World Series that just ended.
Yeah.
Pitching won the day. I mean, the whole series switched on the no hitter by the Astros in Game 4 when they were back against the wall, and then Game 5 and 6, the pitching came through. So, you need pitching to win. The Yankees kind of have shown, look, you can bash through 162 games and win a lot of, win your division. But if you don't have pitching in the World Series or in the playoffs, you're not getting anywhere.
Right. Well, and from the Phillies, right, that they got bashers there too. You got Bryce, you got, Eric Hosmer, you got the whole group of Phillies there that can hit. But there's a lot of swing and miss in that. And I think that's what we found out in the World Series is, they can hit, but they also miss the ball. I was just looking third baseman wise. There's a guy, Justin Turner, who, of course, with the Dodgers, he's still got a club option, but it's likely that he'll decline it. Brandon Drury, I mean, look at what Brandon Drury did for the Padres in his short period of time on there. So literally, if you look at each one of the positions, there's depth there, and there's actually value there.
Yeah, and I think baseball is strange. I mean, we talked about this with the salary cap yesterday with some of these sports. I feel like baseball, I know there's the luxury tax, but I feel like baseball is starting to become a little more like the Premier League than it is like the NBA because, you got, before the season starts next year, I mean, you can basically kind of go out and probably predict with pretty decent accuracy who the certain playoff teams are going to be. The Astros and the Yankees and the Mets and the Braves, the Phillies, the Padres, the Dodgers. It's the Cardinals probably. So it's becoming the haves and the have-nots a little bit more in baseball. So it's going to be interesting to see if any of these players end up going to teams. Maybe that are fighting to get back into it. Obviously, the Giants in 2021 won 106 games. They're trying to get back into it this year. So, I I think it's going to be interesting to see. And, remember last year we were waiting to see what was going to happen with the free agents because of the labor. So they signed a little bit later than they usually do. Maybe this year some of these players sign a little earlier.
What do you think of DeGrom? Does he go back to the Mets, or is he headed somewhere else?
That's
I mean, look, if the Yankees gave 310, was it 310 to
they just paid Diaz. They just paid Diaz 102, and the Scherzer, and they're trying to bring back Nimmo. So I don't know. Maybe if he's gonna be getting $44 million a year, $40 million a year, I could easily see him going somewhere else, and maybe the Mets trying to go. I mean, he for as good as he is, he's injured a lot.
right.
So, for $40 million, you better be on the field, or you better be that missing piece that helps somebody, get to the World Series. Maybe somebody like the Phillies, or somebody with.
Yeah, he's the thing that would concern me about DeGrom, and I love watching DeGrom pitch. Okay, I'm a Max Scherzer fan, but I also like DeGrom. The thing with DeGrom is he just doesn't go deep into games.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
You're paying these guys $40 million. I mean, every once in a while, you need to get past the fifth inning. The game has changed now with the bullpen, but you can't be paying a guy $40 million to go 5 innings. You gotta get me some innings every once in a while. 8 innings. Let me rest my bullpen a little bit.
Right. You're hoping that they can. I mean, one of the great things about Max. Now, this is a problem with Max because he's 38 years old, right? Is that Max will go out there and he'll ball at 6, 7 innings every time, and it's rare that he doesn't pass the 6th inning. The problem is at the end of the season, as we saw during the playoffs, there's nothing left. He's thrown his arm out, and that's a problem for him. Now, in Jacob's place, as you said, Jacob was a guy who got a lot of injuries early in his career. And then there was that situation where, for 2 years, the Mets averaged like 2 runs that they would score for him. So, we'll see. But I think Jacob DeGrom back to the Mets is not necessarily a 100% deal.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You kind of be interested to see where these pitchers go. And, most of the free agents that are in this class are 30 and up. So
right. It's an older class.
Yeah. Some of those younger players.
Like I said, there's some guys here. As I was looking at the names, and at each position, there are 3 or 4 guys at each position that aren't big names. I mean, they're big names, but they're older guys. They still could play on a team and still make an impact. And it's a low risk, high reward thing if you invest in them. So I think that's something that teams like the Rays have done, and it's benefited them. Minnesota has done it. Cleveland has done it. They're franchises that know, all right, look, I only have a finite amount of money to spend. Can I find somebody who will play for me for 2 years that I can get the max out of? And the Rays have probably been the best at that. Houston's not been bad either at finding guys and picking them up and putting them on the roster. So,
Jim, what about your big news yesterday in your neck of the woods? Georgetown basketball won a game for the first time in 328 days, 21-game losing streak, and they had to go to overtime to beat Juan Dixon's Coppin State. What has happened to that program?
That program, since Big John passed, has been a wreck. You would think that Georgetown, because of the pedigree, would be able to really recruit some good kids, and they have just whiffed on pretty much everybody.
It's such a
Right.
great school. I mean, I'm a North Carolina guy, so
Right.
we lost to Georgetown. We beat them in the final, obviously. We lost. I went to see him play in 2007 Elite Eight. Georgetown beat them, but Iverson. Like, I just remember watching Iverson and George. Like, Allen Iverson was at Georgetown. Like, I've heard all crazy stories about him driving his Mercedes through the
Right.
campus and parking there, and then that's why after his sophomore year, that's why he declared for the draft. But I mean, just iconic. Georgetown, they're so good. And just to see what's happened to them, it's so crazy what's happened.
Well, my career with ESPN as a director started with Big East basketball in 79 and 80. And I mean, there was the great Louis Carnesecca, who had the great line that the difference between the ACC and the Big East was, in the ACC you touch somebody, you get fouled. In the Big East, it's no blood, no foul. You're basically, they were street ballers, and that's what they wanted. They wanted guys who were tough and intimidating, and that league for many years was tough and intimidating. Georgetown is neither tough nor intimidating anymore. And most of the teams that played in that Big East, we saw Providence, of course, as starting to build back their program, but St. John's is okay, but not overwhelming. Villanova is good, and with or without Jay, but those were programs that were iconic programs, and Georgetown is one of those iconic programs that just for whatever reason can't seem to get out of their way.
Providence needed a 36-25 second half to beat Ryder yesterday, 66-65. I know because we tape at Ryder, the ESPN show, and Ryder is picked to finish pretty highly in the MAC this year.
Right.
Obviously Providence graduated top 8 players on the team. But yeah, the Big East, it goes back to some of the stuff we talked about yesterday with the realignment. I mean, you just don't even really kind of recognize some of these leagues anymore. But I think it's always.
I will personally never forgive John Swafford for crushing the Big East and basically taking away from Mike Tranghese all of those teams at one time, and it really ruined what was a good football and basketball conference.
Yeah, it's interesting now too because it's all. I mean, it's Catholic schools mostly, or Christian, except for UConn, who's in it. But Seton Hall, Butler, Creighton, DePaul, Georgetown, Marquette, Providence, St. John's, Villanova.
Well, BC started in there, so you had BC, Syracuse. Mm-hmm. You had the Philly schools, with you had St. John's, you had Seton Hall, you had Villanova, you had Georgetown. Am I missing anybody there?
I think Rutgers was it at some point.
Rutgers. Yeah, Rutgers was there. And Pitt. Mm-hmm. So I remember we used to have there were times when I did the early game, the early Big Ten, the early Big East game, and then the Big Ten night game, which started at 9 o'clock. And this one week it was Pitt, West Virginia, at Pitt. And then we flew after the game was over. We took a U.S. Air flight to Columbus. And then myself and Skip Jardine, who was the producer, did the Ohio State Purdue basketball game at 9 o'clock. So we had 2 games in one day in 2 different cities for the Big East and then Big Ten. But fun games. I mean, in the old Big East, it was a lot of fun. Georgetown, I don't know what to happen. I mean, the only thing that's even the jerseys don't look like the same anymore.
Yeah, that was the thing. I mean, we used to go. My friends when I was at Columbia, we traveled down to Georgetown a lot because we had friends. He had friends down there from Del Barton, So I always like going down there. It's a great campus. My
Right.
brother went to GW, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I was down there a little bit. But yeah, I
And,
think
yeah. And then they had that rivalry with Syracuse that was so good
yes, yeah.
with Boeheim and John. But it's John. John's son for a long time. You had Patrick. I mean, you had people who in theory could recruit, but it just didn't. When John the Third came in, his problem was he wanted to run that Princeton offense, and no kid who plays street ball wants to play that kind of Princeton offense. Where you're doing backdoor cuts and you just keep passing, and you're going to stay in the 50s. They don't want to do that. They want to play run and gun, and he didn't want to do it. So it was difficult for him to find a quality enough team to make it work for him. But that's one of those jobs where, I don't. They're very loyal to former players, which there's a lot to be said for that. But they haven't had, Patrick, you would think might be able to pull it off. He didn't. So whether or not where the future of Georgetown goes, I have no idea.
It's interesting because we talk about college basketball, and it used to be there's once again a lot of people don't really kind of watch it until January, but that week of Thanksgiving, there's there used to be the tournaments, and now you have basically starting this next week. Tuesday, Wednesday, you have the Legends Classic, Myrtle Beach Invitational, which is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, November 17th to the 20th. You have the Shriners Classic in Charleston with some teams. You have the Hoop Bahamas Classic Friday, U.S. Virgin Islands. And then, that's this Jersey Mike's Jamaica Classic. It seems like there's a lot of stuff in Continental Tire in Vegas. And then you have a whole nother week of tournaments now. You got the Sunshine Slam, and you got the Cayman Islands and the Gulf Coast Showcase and Maui Invitational, which one of the greatest tournaments of all time.
Right.
The finals Wednesday night. I always remember watching the finals at hanging out on the night before before Thanksgiving, Fort Myers tip off. There's so many games and there's so many teams playing. It's really cool how they do this, and wall to wall games during that week. Battle for Atlantis is another good one.
Right. They used to have the Sunshine Classic, which Georgetown would come down every year because they would St. Leo would play, in that classic, and there'd be 16.
They have one this year in London. They're doing a tournament in London, which is just kind of showing how much this game is kind of spreading. I think college basketball is getting bigger all over. Just talking to some of the people, my friends here in England, I try to tell them all the time, look, just I know you guys like the NBA. Go watch these college games. It's actually pretty good basketball.
You and I talked in the pre-show about the EuroLeague. A lot of these kids that play college basketball here in the States will go and play in the EuroLeague and do very well. And it's a lot of them, because from covering the Champions League, that a lot of the teams in the EuroLeague are owned by the soccer teams.
Yeah, Real Madrid, obviously, Luka Doncic, who came from there. So pretty interesting.
And you've got Maccabi Tel Aviv, who always comes up with 5 or 6, star kids that they didn't quite make it in the NBA, but they go over and they play in the European League. You can make a very good, living that way. Or, like you just said, you might be able to hone your craft and get better at it and end up playing in the NBA. So one or the other is not a bad deal.
Yeah, we had a couple of players I used to coach, or Franz Massenet and Brandon Taylor. They're playing over there, and some of the big leagues. Franz actually played for teams in Germany, Spain and France. He's been playing at a high level. He played for that Drexel team that was really good. He should be in NBA, to be honest, but he never really got a chance. Very good defensive player, but he's made a really good living over there.
Look at Kobe Bryant's father, Jelly Bean. He played in Italy for a number of years, and Kobe, when Kobe came here and went to high school in Philly, and then went into the NBA. He was a much more mature kid because he played basketball in Italy.
Yes.
So,
I think you just get it. It's just growing up in different cultures kind of just allows you you see different ways to play, and you learn different things, and I think it's always interesting.
Yeah. So we'll check in on. There's going to be a lot of fun college basketball, and I spent growing up, I enjoyed watching the UCLA play. Especially the UCLA Notre Dame games whenever Digger was coaching for Notre Dame and John Wooden was still at UCLA. And, he used to take. I don't remember watching or saw anything that John did, but John used to take and wrap up his program, and he would hold it in his hand, and it's like he needed a paper to tell him who was on his team. I mean, he didn't. But he used it as a prop. He used to, pound his hand with it, pound the door, pound on his knee. Just it was his little thing to release tension, was to have that in his hand. And some of those games between Notre Dame and UCLA, and of course the Houston game between those two teams, whenever you had that amazing thing with Elvin Hayes taking on. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at that time, Legal Cinder. Just some phenomenal games in college basketball back in the day.
Yeah, and just I just remember watching games from when I was a kid, and I'm not a. I mean, I watch the NBA, but I'm a
college basketball fan too. I mean,
yeah, it's just there's so much stuff around it.
I, as a very young kid, used to be Saturday would be SEC basketball. Now, SEC basketball back in those days was not good. Okay, it was just not good at all. But Pete Maravich playing at LSU, that was fun. I remember Pete Maravich playing in a game, and I forget who they were playing. It doesn't really matter. He scored 67 points, and LSU scored 78 points total.
Wow.
So, you do the math. Pete was one of the most amazing players I think I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the ball would come out of every possible where. I mean, come off his head. You'd see it come out of, did it come from behind his back? Did it come from, off his head? I don't know where it came from, but guess what? It went right into somebody else's hand. I never saw him pass as well as he did. Although Niagara had a kid, Ernie DiGregorio, who was not a bad passer either. But Pete, besides being able to shoot, could throw, could definitely pass the ball. And it's unfortunate that, of course, he died way too early, and nobody knew about that heart issue that he had. But some phenomenal stuff. And I do tend to like to watch games on the coast because, I know enough and see enough basketball on the East Coast that I'm always curious about what's going on, out west. And we talked about it the other day that there were some fun basketball teams that you could just, Mount St. Mary's is a fun team to watch. Pepperdine occasionally. I mean, there's some really good, there's some good basketball programs that you can, definitely check out, and just to get a little different vibe of what's going on out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So, one of the things that's coming up, ratings wise, yesterday they announced that this was the second, quote unquote, the second lowest ratings of the World Series in baseball history. Now, that's really kind of a bit of a misnomer, and I'll explain here in just a sec. In 1975, that was the highest rated World Series ever. Okay, that of course was the Reds and the Red Sox. The thing is, there were only 4 channels at that time.
Yeah.
Which was NBC, CBS, ABC, and Independent. So your concentration of what you wanted to watch was, one of those 3 networks. The more networks you get, the more watering down you get of an audience. And baseball and NBA and NHL and all that. Fox won every night if there was a baseball game. So if you're Fox, you were happy. You did what you wanted. You wanted to win the night. You won the night. They had 6 games. You won the week. Okay, so that was not a bad thing. Are there fewer people watching baseball? Yes. Does that mean that this is the second lowest rated World Series in history is a bad thing? Not necessarily, because again, if you are the owner of the rights, right? What do you want? You want ratings and you want to win the week. And if you get ratings and win the week, then it's been a good win for you. Fox did exactly what they wanted to do, which is win the week. Would they have liked better ratings? Yes. But how can you would just by the margins be able to say, okay, yeah, well, I did more, but I still won. So it's like it's almost like the only thing they were worried about was covering the spread, right? We won. Did we win by 10? 10 million people, 15 million? What doesn't matter? You won. And I think sometimes you read into it, or it's read into from a statistical standpoint. Oh, well, they didn't do very well. Well, Fox won the week, and more people watched the World Series than watched anything else on television over that week.
Yeah.
So, did they outdo, Sunday night football? No, because that's one game, one night. You're not going to outdo that. But I do think that sometimes the ratings are a little confusing to people, and that is something that we'll try to help you along the way to make sure that you understand that it ain't bad. It's just different. That's all. There's not that many people. You've got a diluted amount of of an audience. It's like watching what's a good number for soccer. I once asked Sean McManus, the president of CBS Sports, about that when they did the deal with Premier League. I'm sorry, with Champions League. And he goes, we know what an audience is, and we know what our audience is, and if we can focus and get them, in the building, then it benefits us.
Yep.
So, is 275,000 people on a Tuesday afternoon watching the Bundesliga a bad thing? No. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. You're creating and growing an audience, and you'll benefit from it down the road. And I think that's what we're seeing with the streaming service.
Yeah, I just, there's just so much. There's so much stuff to watch. There's so many games on at the same time now. The streaming sites. I think they get their money in other ways now. So they're not really.
Well, we have access to it.
Yeah.
That we have access to it that we didn't have before. So you have the ability to say, you know what, you start off watching one game, and for whatever reasons becomes boring, and you've got 3, 4, 5 others at the same time, and you say, you know what, I'm going to flip over and check this out, and then maybe you come back and see what the other one is doing. But you've got options, and options are not a bad thing.
Yeah, there's always other stuff to watch. And, just I think, sometimes these people are still hooked on these, ratings and numbers and stuff. And it's just different metrics now. And you just have to kind of focus on,
Take a deep breath. Yeah.
you focus on different things. Yeah. I don't know. I just, sometimes I'll see a report like, oh, hey, the football is still did 7 of the 10 ratings or something. But, once again, you look at it from 10 years ago and it's just different. So it is what it is now, I think.
Okay. So let me ask you something as we cruise here towards the 30-minute mark. We're going to get ready next week for World Cup. What are some of the things between now and next week that you're going to be looking at just as things start to head, people start to adjust their focus to what's going to happen in Qatar?
Injuries, first of all, Sadio Mane now went off injured yesterday for Bayern Munich and now is a doubt for the World Cup. And that's a huge blow for Senegal, who, a lot of people thought maybe, could get out of the group and cause some problems in the round of 16 to maybe an England team. But, without Sadio Mane, that people are going to start scrambling and changing their picks around. So I think something like that, you got to see who's going to get some injuries. There's a lot of games in the midweek and on the weekend. So they're trying to get as many games as they can here before the break. So, if any big players pick up injuries, and Karim Benzema, the Ballon d'Or winner, has a little bit of an injury, hasn't been playing for Real Madrid, so he's racing against time. And Raphael Varane, there's going to be some players that miss out because of injury. Someone might get injured on the weekend. There's always something. So I think you want to watch and see this weekend. The next two, today, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, see who stays healthy and see who gets injured and maybe if they have to be replaced in the squad. Most of the teams are going to be released today, tomorrow, Friday, the next few days. US gets released today at some point. So, maybe you can kind of see who's going to be on the specific teams. I don't think it matters as much for, obviously it's so big for the US, hey, who's on the team, but for teams like Brazil released their team and it doesn't really matter. They're so talented. So somebody got left off. Well, who are you taking off? Who are you leaving off? Neymar? You just it's to the point where they're, embarrassing with riches.
Right.
And it's just, some people's going to miss. And it's the same thing that happens in the NCAA basketball tournament. They're always like, well, who didn't get in? This team, but who are you leaving out to let that team in? It's
well, if you go to 68 teams, beyond 68, you've watered everything now.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. The next World Cup now is going to 48 teams, and they're going to do, it's going to be, goofy. I think the first stage is going to be like just 2 games, and like 2 teams will qualify. And
right.
Then now you're at round of 32, and then round of 16. So instead of having 3 matches to get through, you only have 2, and then you have an extra round of games. So, I don't know. Does it more teams get into the knockout round, which means more teams have a chance to win that game and get through? So does it make a difference? Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but we'll see. They just want to put more big games,
more TV. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and it'll be in the USA, so it'll be on it. We'll be able to watch them at decent times, probably, hopefully.
Yeah. What do you make of Seth Blatter saying that giving the World Cup to Qatar was a mistake?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's easy for him to say
jail
for it. Like those guys went to jail, him and Platini. There's clear. They gave the U.S. got the World Cup in 2026 because the FBI did found this stuff out. I mean, there was clear corruption on the votes. Everybody in the world knew that. There was, USA was going to get this, or England, they were one of the favorites. And all of a sudden it was Russia and Qatar and they did it all in one vote. And you're like, wait a second. like Qatar, like of all the places you could give it,
Right.
it was just like you could do it like. I mean, there's other countries that were up for those things, and it's
Right.
just it was just weird. They don't
Well,
have
then you have a full stadium,
nothing built.
right?
Oh.
It's like we'll have it, and then there was what was the fun thing? There was what we'll do is we're going to build up these pop-up stadiums, then we're going to take them apart, and then we're going to give them to countries around the world who need stadiums. And you're like, okay, but taking them apart and putting them back together and what, boxing them up and sending them, what are they made out of Legos? I mean, who knows? But
The interesting thing was this vote was to 2010. I mean, they voted so long ago, and they beat out pretty interesting teams. I mean, they beat out South Korea, who already hosted it, so they shouldn't have hosted it. South Korea and Japan. United States had done it in 94 or whatever. But Australia, so Qatar and Australia. Australia could have had it in the summertime because it was winter down there, and it would have been perfect weather. Like that was probably the place.
And Australia is a fantastic place. I mean,
they also had all the infrastructure, and you didn't have this stuff. So I mean, it was clear, like there's all the other stuff around it, like you can't drink, I don't know, like these fans.
Well, that knocks out half of Europe.
Yeah, you can't. It's just. It is what it is, but like just to come out and say that, it's almost like embarrassing. Like, listen, you went to jail for awarding it. Like, it's not like everybody in the world knows. It's like, no kidding. Thanks, guy.
Thank you, Captain Obvious, for the.
No, I don't know. I think it's a little bit like insulting to people's intelligence a little. I just I think they should just he just wants to always be in the limelight. Just go away. Like, let the world, like, look, the World Cup's here, and like just now
shut up and let it go.
All the stuff. I mean, there's human rights and all this other stuff and everything that goes along with it. But like, once the World Cup starts, it's about like the games. I mean, it just go away until the games are over and stuff, and then I don't know.
Thanks. Time to leave. I mean, it's Australia would have been perfect for that, and now and then it's coming here, so we'll see how it comes and see what goes on. But again, infrastructure, it's not like we're going to have to build stadiums to host it. The one thing I will say, and this is something people take you behind them if you don't already know, and that is that UEFA. There's a lot of different cities that have decided, okay, fine, we would like to host a game. You have to put up a phenomenal amount of money to host the game, and then basically you have to give that money to UEFA. So there have been some cities who have said, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. We're good. We'll watch it. And I've had 4 or 5 people say to me, well, how come like Tampa and Orlando, always look at it, and then one of the 2 of them will make the decision to host a game. For friendlies more than anything else, but in this case, it would be World Cup. And the Tampa Sports Authority said, the amount of money we're going to have to spend to get a game is not worth the amount of money that we're going to have to spend to get that single game, because we're not going to get any money from it. All that money has to come from, tourism dollars, because every penny that comes through the till does not go to the host city. It goes to UEFA. So, how badly do you want to host a game? It boils down to you spending the money, giving it to the association. So,
now the next, the 2030 World Cup they're still trying to figure out. Morocco wants to host,
right.
Uruguay, Argentina, Paraguay, Chile, put in a joint bid for South America, which would be interesting. In Europe, it's just weird. Spain, Portugal, and Ukraine. So,
That is weird. Yeah.
Spain and Portugal, you see, they're right next to each other.
Yeah, they're right next to them.
Yeah. And then, Egypt, Greece, and Saudi Arabia, which is, different sides of the Med. It's probably, I would say, I know England was interested in it, but they abandoned it. So I think, it's probably going to go to, Uruguay, Argentina.
Yeah, it's about to. I mean, they have to go back to that southern hemisphere.
Yeah, they were there in 2014 in Brazil. So they went to 2018 is Europe, 2022 is Asia, 2026 is CONCACAF. So 2030 will either be, Africa or I would think, or South America, and maybe Morocco gets the 2034 one, or Morocco and Egypt. But yeah, it's so far out.
Yeah, that one we'll figure out when we get there. But the U.S., the one that the U.S. is coming up is going to be Canada, the United States, and Mexico, which makes for I think that's a very clever and what might.
Yeah, it's not even Canada's hosting like 3 games, and Mexico's hosting a couple games in a quarter, round of 16 and stuff. So it's it's good they get to host it, and they can say the majority of the games will be in the U.S. So
yeah, it's something that we'll be looking forward to. There's no question about that. We're getting to the point here. We're getting close to the end of the show here. Time to wrap things up. What are some of the things that you would suggest to World Cup fans that they get prepare themselves for watching the games? I mean, you're going to give them some time now to get this stuff together. You got to get your notes together.
You're not getting any sleep the first week. Obviously, the game's on at 5 a.m. But I think people look. There's 4 games the first week. 5, 8, 11. Don't feel like you have to watch every game. There's going to be so many highlight shows, and you don't need to take off of work for a month to watch it. I'll be watching and doing work and stuff, but I think you want to target some games. Obviously the USA games are at 2:00 on the 21st, the 25th, and the 29th. But maybe, excuse me, if you don't have one, maybe pick a player you like, pick an adopted team. Mine is France. I'm a huge, I follow the French team. I like Mbappe. He's one of my favorite players. I like Benzema. I like, so maybe find a team and follow them through. Don't pick like, I don't even know. You don't pick Costa Rica. They're not getting through, they're not getting to the thing. Try to pick a team that'll keep your interest in, because I don't think the USA has much of a chance.
This would be like a putting together your bracket for the NCAA tournament, right?
Yeah, it's hard though, because the bracket isn't basically finished until December 3rd, and then the knockout stage starts December 4th. So you're gonna have like one night to basically do it.
Figure it out, yeah.
So we'll have a bunch of different. We'll that night on December 3rd we'll have we'll
bring in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we'll be on talking about it in previews and everything. We'll have a lot of programming around the World Cup, so that'll be good. But I just think and I know people are asking about like betting and betting stuff because it's legal, except in California where they 4-1 against it yesterday. So I guess California's never getting sports betting. Just find a game, just find one, target, one game that you like. It's like football. If you're betting 5 or 6 games a day, it's probably not good. If you're, you want to try to find one game or 2 games, I think. And that thing. And it's good because I think the sport is growing here, and obviously people are excited for it. So it's the World Cup. It's going to be big. The TV will make a big deal at. I would also say, like, don't. I don't really watch the pregame. I can't watch an hour pregame before. There's an hour pregame before everything. Champions League.
Right.
I know stuff. I know what my team has to do. I can't. It's tough for me to sit and listen to them talk about this stuff a lot, and it's just a lot of them bash my team, or I know what my team has to do. But like if you have to get some work done, try to get your work done in between the games. And don't worry about that, and then tune in when game starts or whatever. So the games.
Any publications that you would recommend? Any websites? Any publications you would say, look, if you really want to get a little in depth and have some fun with it, these are 3 or 4 sites you might want to check out.
Yeah, obviously, I'm going to have some stuff on NJ.com.
Which we know we're going to be linking that, of course, in the show box.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll have some stuff on NJ.com, but I like the job that Tribal Football does, tribalfootball.com. I like the stuff that Goal does. Goal.com has different versions wherever you are. So, some soccer related sites, obviously ESPN is big. CBS Sports does a good job too. But, the ones that are really the kind of the soccer related sites for Tribal Football and,
well, Gold's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, and what it does is, they have links to these stories. Like Tribal Football is more of an aggregator, so it has like a lot of stuff, and then you can go and say, if you want to read more about it, then you click on the link and you go and you read more about it. So it's kind of it's kind of almost like a short version stuff, and then stuff like that. So
any places to go.
I think the vacuum's coming on here.
Well, then that's time. That brings a new invention to the term sweeper. So,
exactly.
But
my window's in here. See, there's my guy.
There you go.
He's from.
Nice day in Philadelphia.
I think he's from Poland, so they're getting excited for the tournament. I was talking to played. One of the guys that's run the foreman here he played in Poland, so he's getting excited for the tournament.
So it's always sunny in Philadelphia. At least we know that part.
It is. It is today. That's for sure.
There you go. All right. Well, Sean, any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
No, I'm just, once again, just really excited for this World Cup and stuff. So.
Anything up that you can have up on NJ.com that we should be looking for in the next 24, 48 hours?
I'm just covering this game today, but probably the World Cup stuff will go up. I would say probably next week. The tournament starts next 20th, so I would think they're probably going to be going up online probably maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I know it's going in the paper. I think it's going in the paper that weekend. So.
So what we're going to do is you'll be able to check the show box below where it says more, click on it, and there'll be links to all of Sean's work in there. So you'll be able to check it out. Also, by the way, in case you have not seen, I've listed the times that we are on in different cities around the world. So that way, if you are in another part of the world and want to check us and catch us live, you'll be able to do that. If not, we're cool with you watching us on at your leisure on delay. That's what we're here for. So do us a favor. That doesn't take any time, doesn't cost you any money. Just hit the bell to subscribe. Hit that wonderful notification so that you know when coming up. Hit a like because that's analytically something we want. And share it with a soccer fan. And then come on back because, as Sean said, we're going to be the place you're going to want to be when we start talking about World Cup, because we are going to go deep into it, but we're going to have fun with it too. So, this is kind of our little prelim till we get to that point. But you're going to want to be here. The guy over here, oops, actually over there, is the expert in soccer, and we're going to have some fun with that coming up soon.
Right.
So, until tomorrow, boys and girls, put your pens and pencils down. I think we're good for, right, Professor? I think we're class is over for the day, and we've already given you your homework. Go to gold.com, go to a couple of other places and check out what's going on. And we will be back tomorrow. Who knows who might show up? There might be some guests. You just never know with us. Until tomorrow, for the aforementioned prodigal Sean himself, Sean Miller, I'm Jim Williams. Have a wonderful day, guys, and we will see you tomorrow around 3 o'clock.